Hello, folks, and welcome to a one-on-one interview with Uwe Boll, who you probably know from the Postal movie, stuff like Alone in the Dark, Darfur, which is a fantastic movie, and his most recent film, First Shift, which I saw on its opening night. I bought it, like, day of, on iTunes. It was a good time. Yeah, so, Uwe, introduce yourself real quick.
Yeah, hi. So I'm in Germany right now, and
Yes.
it's turning evening time here.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm happy that we talk, and of course, happy to support First Shift. It just came out last week, so of course, it came in a few theaters. That is the new strategy to bring things in some theaters, not like a lot of theaters,
Yeah.
but that's day to day on Amazon and all the other streamers, basically everywhere besides Netflix.
Yes, and you can find links to it down below in the description, by the way. Amazon affiliate links, so that does help out the channel. Obviously, gotta have to say that, but yeah, I really liked it. It was an interesting cop drama. I've mostly known you from your video game films, which I've been mostly a fan of. The House of the Dead, some exception personally, but I look back at it more as a charming film, just not really, like, doesn't connect to the games to me as much, but it's a very charming film, and I think that you've tackled a lot of genres. You've done horror, you've done comedy, you've done action, you've done cop thriller now. I'm intrigued on what genre you want to touch on next. Is there anything in particular that, like, you're gunning for or have always wanted to go for but have never kind of hit that?
I mean, I basically did almost every genre. Comedy I did with German Fright Movie and with Postal. Horror, I mean, Seed was maybe the only real horror film I did, like the very brutal horror. House of the Dead was kind of, from the concept, I think, more an action zombie film based on the game. And I always have this kind of crossover genres. You know, Alone in the Dark, is it a sci-fi thing? Is it an action film? Is it a horror film? I think it's in the end a mix of all of it. You know, Blood Rain is a vampire film. Is that also a genre is the question, you know? So but I'm a big genre fan in general. I'm not the biggest drama fan, so in my films it's always kind of a violent structure or kind of a you know, it can be crime, it can be action, but I like to be entertained as an audience, you know. And I'm not the guy for the romantic love story, and I'm not the guy for like the just human touch drama or Christmas film, whatever. But everything else, I think I almost did. Even Blood Rain 2 was it played in the Wild West, so it was a Western. So, you know, so, and I think with First Shift, after coming back after a while, I mean, it was first Rampage 3 was 2016, then I did nothing. Then COVID came and you couldn't do anything. And then I came back and I felt this film should not be too dark. It should be kind of bad boys, kind of, you know, like that typical police buddies who doesn't really want to work together and stuff like this, to bring some humor into it. But then the individual cases are, of course, hard because it's a police film. It's not like they go to a children's birthday party, right? So
you do kind of keep, like, you keep an underpinning of like drama threads throughout it, but you also do keep it very, like, light in tone. Even with, you know, there being without spoiling it, obviously, there's a scene where somebody's counting down to something, and it's a very tense scene. There's a lot of drama in that, but it never slips out from being too dramatic and forgetting the comedy, or being too comedic and forgetting the drama, which I really was impressed by.
Yeah, and I'm happy with the two actors, Kristen Renton and Gino Pesi. They did a great job in bringing this across, right? This kind of humor, and she's more like this outgoing, positive person, and he's not, based on his personal drama. He lost his kid, and I think that fits very good, so that it's not like. Because I have that sometimes when you watch a film. I just watched that Mark Wahlberg film with Halle Berry, like the #1 on Netflix.
Yeah. I can't remember the name of it, but I've seen it kind of advertised.
Yes, and there the problem there I have is that it's overall like more like a Mission Impossible James Bond thing.
Yeah,
They kill people and people and people everywhere, but then they try to be funny in between.
yeah,
And I didn't try that. I think that works in First Shift in a way more realistic, that they don't try to be funny. They don't try to make jokes.
yeah,
They're not like the situation is funny or how they interact with each other is funny. But, and I think that works when you have, in general, more an action driven story with actually dead people, like,
yeah.
so that is where I have some problems with some of this tongue-in-cheek kind of films, where they basically making jokes about people they're killing because they don't count.
Yeah. There's a
You know,
lot
I
of
don't think that.
yeah,
Yeah,
there's a lot of that now where it's like you go to a movie and it typically is a lot more quippy than it should be. It's like if they reeled in on the jokes at least maybe 30%, it would be a lot better. The pacing would flow a lot better, but it just kind of feels like they have to hit a quip per minute kind of thing.
yeah, yeah. So, and that's I think in First Shift not the case. But I think like the idea was to be not close to this kind of TV shows, like CSI, Blood, and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So to be a little different in regards also how the film looks like.
Okay.
We shot CinemaScope. It looks like theatrical.
Oh yeah, it's shot in places I haven't seen on film in New York in years. I think the closer I compared it to the show Mr. Robot, where it's like we're hitting small areas that I haven't seen of New York outside of being in New York, and it's nice. I really liked that.
There was also this kind of love letter to New York from me because I really like the city with all the craziness, but I like it. And you cannot fake it somewhere. All that films who fake New York in other cities.
Yeah.
It's as soon you open up, it's New York or not.
Yeah, if it's mostly Vancouver, most of the time is New York. Well, Vancouver's everywhere pretty much, but it's like you can tell they try replacing New York especially because it's like I've seen that building a million fucking times. And, and
that was why I went with Assault on Wall Street. We shot stuff in Vancouver, but then I went to New York and shot in New York because I said, look, we have to go there. We cannot fake the Central Park or Wall Street, right? So we just have to do it where it is. So, and it was a little more expensive, but I think it pays out that people see that is in New York, right? Okay. So, yeah.
I noticed it and I enjoyed it. So thank you.
Very good.
So I wanted to ask though, because you said before you retired because like the death of stuff like Blockbuster. I worked for a company kind of like Blockbuster, and they died in 2020, and that was like right before Family Video.
Family Video, I know the name. Yeah, yeah.
I loved that job. It paid like shit, but I rent movies all the time before they'd come out. I saw most of your work that was coming in. Rampage 3 came in early. I saw it the night before it came out, and I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, so no, but that is the thing. What I think that the key issue with Blockbuster or in general rental or sales through DVDs and Blu-rays and now is you had a better chance as an independent to get picked in Best Buy or in Walmart or whatever when they had really a lot of product, because the people walk by and you see a cover and you think that looks good. Maybe I should watch it. Yeah. That is not the case in the streaming world we are, because if you don't pop up on the first 10 covers, you're dead.
You're essentially like a void.
Yes, so that's the problem. At Blockbuster 2, how many times I decided to rent a show because I saw the cover. I had no clue that the film was existing. And I think that got lost. And that is very hurtful for all the independent film producers, because now it's you have to be totally lucky if you get really money in the streaming world, So that's the problem, because of course the most expensive films they produce themselves and then they push them endlessly. And a lot of times, when they release like Netflix top 10 charts or whatever, for me it's this kind of of course this film is in the top 10 because as soon as I switched Netflix on, it was in front of me every single day since, like, and then people watching whatever the Three Body Problem, or like all that stuff, because you get so many times in front of you, you start watching it, and they push it because, of course, they spend hundreds of millions of dollars to do that shows. So that's the thing, but it's very unfair to independent producers, where they just like acquire a film and put it out there. When Netflix released the numbers, and I saw that my Rampage film, like the Rampage 1, did 3.8 million hours. There was a huge number for a film what was never featured on Netflix, right? It was just
never advertised.
No advertising. And then 3.8 million hours, we were from 20,000 productions, I think, in the top 1,000 from films, like with 20,000 listings. And then you feel, okay, but they gave me only 100 grand.
Yeah, it's kind of bullshit. It's like that many hours is insane to fathom, and then just get 100K out of it,
Yes, they should say, look, because you made 3.8 million hours, you should get another $500,000, what is still only 5% of what they spend on an episode of Wednesday or shows they do, right? So, and I think that's my main problem. Like the main problem, and I think also that Hollywood strike with the writers and everybody and the actors, it went not to the core of the problem now. Because all the producers, of course, they want to schmooze around with they don't want to have trouble with the hand that feeds them, right? But that would real strike. The real strike, what should happen is that people would say, we need a fairer pay or bumps if my product it has success. And all that whiny people. I remember when like the Jake Gyllenhaal film, like the Roadhouse, right? So when there were the director, Doug Liman or whatever, he was whiny that it didn't get a theatrical release, but he made like almost 20 million bucks in his pocket. So if you make so much money, you should shut the fuck up.
Exactly. I mean, I would take the money and be like, hey, I guess I didn't see it in a theater.
And I think that's this kind of like unfairness. That they like the people who are in that unions or whatever and negotiate, they're on a level where one film is enough, they never have to work again. And and that doesn't reflect the film industry. So, and I think that would be the major thing, that there has to be a bonus system for everybody. Also films they acquire and not like produce, and that would be fair, and that would also make the independent film industry staying alive.
Exactly. See, the way I would, if I was one of these Netflix execs, I would look at films like that and say, all right, independent film, this much money, this many hours of view, let's throw that person $1 million, say, hey, because they do that a lot. They end up doing a lot of these streamer movies, and sometimes they're good, sometimes they're really good, and then sometimes they're like just trash. It feels like they're throwing like 20, 30 million to a director that made maybe one thing, and it's like not doing as well. I would look at those independent ones and say, like, all right, these are plucky people. These are people that are clever with these concepts, with the budget too. I mean, because like you made Rampage, from what I heard, I'll have you clear this up for me. 6 days was Rampage 1, is what I heard.
No, Rampage 1 was like 17 days.
Okay.
And Rampage 2 and Rampage 3 each were only 7 days each.
Okay. All right, I thought I had them a little mixed up there. Thank you for that. But it's like that to me, like if I was one of these companies like a Netflix or a Hulu, I'd be like, that's what we need. We need people making these films with that kind of talent, with that kind of budget. And I think we're seeing it now. Like horror, that's always kind of stayed the same. Like horror, like small budgets, high return. But you're not seeing that with a lot of these other genres anymore. And I do think you kind of like successfully can take small budget or what people consider small budget and make something quality out of it.
Yes, and I think also like when that whole Borderland discussion came
up. We did an episode on that actually.
But it was actually not me saying what they say I said. But but I still think like when then the people like were discussing it online and went over and over,
Yeah.
then I interfered. Then I said, look, guys, House of the Dead was 7 million production costs
Yeah.
and did $13 million box office, what is basically what Borderland did. But it cost 110 million, and they spent at least 50 million in advertising. What was, of course, not the case on House of the Dead. That was like thrown out, and then they were like, okay, let's see what's happening, right? So there was like a $10 million spent on House of the Dead maximum, but when it came to the theaters. So, and then when they said Uwe Boll did flop after flop, House of the Dead did 28 million in video rental.
Yeah,
right?
Which I wouldn't call that a flop.
That's
good.
That is the opposite of a flop. There's actually a hit, right? Because that would be the equivalent that Borderlands would do 400 or 500 million bucks.
Oh yeah,
and and that's the thing where I feel like this kind of where a lot of you work in the business, what is good, but a lot of this, like Twitter people or whatever, they don't know how the film industry works, and they don't see any difference between budgets. So for them, it's like that movie sucks, right? But you always have to put into account what was the price of that movie.
Yeah,
and that's the thing what they completely getting wrong. And I think if you have 110 million, then you should make a way better movie as Borderlands with 110 million.
Exactly.
And a lot of times when I watch these action films where they're writing like 100 million, 120 million, then I feel I could did the same film for 20 million, 25 million.
Oh yeah.
So
I've seen movies that have like, all this money on the screen and it looks incredibly cheap compared to something. It's also the overuse of green screen. It's like green screen is a tool, much like CGI even. CGI is a tool, but when you overly rely on it, that it becomes too much and it hits that uncanny valley where people just look at it and it's like that's weird. That shouldn't be here. They're doing a Minecraft movie, and I saw the trailer for that, and it was like incredibly uncanny. It's like this just looks like they're all on a set that there's some practical stuff, sure, like there's a tree and all that, but it just looks like CGI, a nightmare. Is the only way I can describe it. It looks like a nightmare. And
I wrote about it. It's like Barbie for guys and with Jack Black or whatever.
Yeah.
Because the wardrobe looked like Barbie for me and the coloring. But that's also a thing, over time, in a way, my game movies aged well. Because they were just straightforward genre films. And you can say, oh God, yeah, maybe Tariq was totally wrong in Alone in the Dark. And I agree. But the reality is that I think I had almost the biggest cast of all video game-based movies in Blood Rain and In the Name of the King, Dungeon Siege, with Statham and Burt Reynolds and Ron Perlman, endless, right? So Ben Kingsley and so on. All of that actors never made a video game-based movie before or after. And I think they made that films because they thought it's just a genre film. It's not a video game, but it should stand alone even as a genre film. And then when I got grilled for it, because I made so many in that time period, where not a lot of game movies were done. They were, they were like unusual. Before me was like Mario Brothers, and there was Wing Commander and
Street Fighter,
and then I came, and parallel to me came the one Resident Evil, and they felt like it's a threat. Now so many video game-based movies, what the fuck? We have to cut it down. But then later came so much shit. Like with so much more money, like Prince of Persia.
That was awful. That was so awful.
Yeah, I hated that film.
I saw that movie. I saw that movie in the drive-in theater. We had one around me before it closed. And me and my father, we were big fans of the 2003 game, Sans Time. We were like, all right, that idea makes sense as a movie. Let's go see it. And it was so disappointing. I think we left halfway through. My dad was like, fuck this. And we just drove back home. And it was a 30-mile drive. So it was a bad time.
Yeah, and it's like, you can make a corny movie, but I don't know people, they walked out of House of the Dead. I mean, it was corny, it was campy, but it was entertaining.
It's at the very least, like, something you can actually sit there and enjoy with it, because, like, again, practical effects, those always hold up, I still think, very well, especially stuff like Postal. I love the practical effects in Postal. But it's one of those things. It's like I think the problem with adaptation is getting the tone right, and I do think in a lot of those you got the tone at least accurate. Like Postal, especially, where I think that you nailed that right on the fucking head. Like you,
Yes. Yeah.
like it feels like a Postal 2 movie, and I like that.
But like you saw the article, right, in Vulture last week.
That was so stupid.
That was insane.
Yeah,
that was really like when I opened that, I get always the links, right? So then I clicked it on and started reading and see the worst video game film ever was Postal. I felt for 1 second they reversed it.
Like, it was like maybe top order.
Yes, because I felt like that is impossible.
Yeah.
Because at the same time, that means that all my other video game-based films, they felt are better as Postal. And Postal is not only my favorite, but I think Postal is the best video game-based film.
Oh, yeah.
Like, if like neutrally have to vote. There are some Pikachu, but there are good things on the list where I totally agree with.
I would also say, like, I put yours up there with, they did a Twisted Metal show, which was actually really good. It was... Yeah. Like, captured the tone. Obviously, it was kind of like the games don't really have a story, but it captures that kind of, you know, that idea and concept. And I think you kind of nailed it with the tone, the story, and also like just keeping everything together because it never misses a beat. Like, it's always got something going on. It's always spinning a plate, and it never drops it, which I think is pretty masterful.
No, I'm happy that you see it this way because, I mean, I'm a big film buff myself and criticize myself also. And, of course, everything I watch since I'm 10. Yeah. And I totally agree that Postal has so many parallel characters, so many speaking parts, and they all add on in like a twister moving forward. Yeah. And you're not like, as you said, we didn't miss a beat. You want to know what's happening to Bin Laden. You want to know what's happening to the Postal dude. You follow that individual things, and it's just like one highlight after the other. You come in a job interview. You come to the trailer park with the fat woman who gets fucked by the neighbor. Whatever, like, you know, like you have like so many highlights in that film that when they're because they always start with the September 11 pilots, but that is only 1 out of 10 or 15 absolute, let's say, never seen scenes before.
Oh, yeah.
He's using the wheelchair guy to climb over him. When, you know, like, there are so many, like, where people say, oh, it's disgusting. And that is maybe the reason they put it last. They had a moral problem with Postal, right? So maybe a guy watched all his shit now, where, of course, Postal would never get any finance, would never get, like, made right now, because everyone would say it's racist, blah, 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 blah. But it's not.
Yeah, I think it's pointing at everybody. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. You know?
It's also that thing with the thing with the games also, where it's like, you know, people gave the games a lot of shit, but it's like, you can be as violent as you want to be, or you can be entirely pacifistic. You can be any side of that spectrum and still finish that game, which is impressive. And people just look at the controversial aspects and don't think like you don't have to play this way. You can. It's the same thing with sex in video games. They always look at it like, oh, this is a sex simulator. It's like, you don't got to press the button that makes you fuck that person. You don't have to.
Yeah, but it's like an adult thing. It's like GTA, right? So it's like there are games. There are basically, even if kids play it, but they shouldn't.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, and you know, and it's this kind of political incorrectness. What for me, of course, was the attraction of Postal, and that's the thing. You know, it's this kind of. I watched it in a movie theater actually in Germany like 2 months ago. They had a double feature with First Shift, and I could pick the other film they would play. And I said, no, play Postal, right? So, and I said, but you have to play First Shift first, because after Postal, the evening is over, right? So, and I convinced everybody, because a lot of people came only because of First Shift, and I convinced them to say, no, stay.
Yeah, stay right? For this.
So, and they were laughing their asses off, because it was more a younger audience from now times, right? And I think half of them never heard about Postal, never watched it. And they were like, blown away. They were laughing their asses off, and they said, I cannot believe what I just watched. That's the power. And that is the thing, like when you see them, like but that shows it for me. This list shows the woke culture we're in. It's kind of, they disapprove Postal because of their own moral compass. So it has to be the worst movie ever.
Yeah, but it's not even close to the worst one. Like, not even close to the worst one of a top 10. Like,
exactly.
Like, it is number one for me. It's like that. I actually really like the Sonic movies also. Those have been surprisingly pretty good. I when I was hearing they were going to do a Sonic movie, I'm like, what do you do? Pick up rings? But they actually made something good out of it. So I was like, all right.
Yeah. No, they were surprisingly funny also, and it totally works. So it's like, I have nothing against the other films, right? I have only something against that Postal was listed as the worst film of all times in the video game thing. And when you go through the list, you see like 25 films in that list from 56 where you say, oh my God, I remember that. I watched 10 minutes. I couldn't, it was just completely unlogical bullshit.
Oh, yeah.
And then there are also films I actually never heard about at all, where you know this film nobody watched, like nobody.
It's like an animated film they put out direct to DVD, and I think a few of the fans probably liked it, but even then, it's like, still, like, I would say the worst video game movie was one, it was based on Dead or Alive games, and I was like, it kind of made no sense. It was very nonsensical. That's my least favorite video game movie. But
I would have to check the list again to really say, okay, that has to go. But I mean, that's the thing. And in retrospective, I made like 36 films or whatever. Yes. And and Postal was the one I loved shooting the most, and I loved rewatching the most because it puts you in a positive mood. Yeah. You had like, the thing is, of course, what you said with Darfur. I think Darfur is maybe the best film I shot, but it's basically, for me, I don't want to watch it anymore.
Yeah, it's a very bleak film.
Yes, it drags you down because you feel helpless and you feel, this is the shit what's happened every day somewhere, and we just let it happen. Yeah. And and it's hurtful because it's so graphic. And for me, when I do films like this, what I did with Tunnel Rats, also with the Vietnam War, is I want to show how gruesome reality is, and it's nothing like James Bond or whatever, like all that action films where people are like getting shot and nobody gives a shit. It's not like this. It's individual lives getting hacked into pieces in that way, and.
It's like getting stabbed is something brutal, and I think you definitely got that in Tunnel Rats, where the first scene, some guy gets like stabbed like right through the stomach, and it's like, that's fucking brutal. Like, that would hurt, and it would just instantly take you out of wanting to move or fight or anything. And like, I think you nailed that on that. I did an Uwe Boll kind of rewatch on as much as I could get, which does lead me into another question. I since you said that you kind of took a break after all of, like Blockbuster and DVD and Blu-ray sales kind of dipping. What is it like with stuff like Tubi and all that? Like, I think it's AVOD is the term now, like the, above the board streaming.
That's the reason I'm back, right? So because I recognized from the sales that my film's still running in TV, cable, AVOD, whatever, and generating revenues. So I could say, look, I use that money and I make now first shift, so that, for example, and that is a good thing. And I'm Tubi is showing Postal too, right? So was one of the first streamers who ever showed it. Now Amazon is showing it too. But so it was at that time when it came out almost impossible to get the film, right? Only on DVD and illegal. So I mean, there's so many YouTube links. I tried to shut down on it, but it didn't work.
Trying to find a trailer, it usually brings you like 3 re-uploads of a film. But, I mean, they are very high watch, so that means people are seeing it, which is something. So
people know it. People know it, and will never forget it. What's a good thing.
Exactly.
And I felt like when 2016, when Rampage 3 came, it was this kind of, streamers were not there where they are right now.
Yeah.
And you don't had this AVOD, like the advertising driven stuff. You also had basically no chance to make real revenues on YouTube. Now things change, right? It's not over if nobody buys a theatrical ticket, or it's over because nobody buys it for $16.99. There is a life after.
Yeah.
And when you have a good film, or you have also, in my case, like kind of a library, they keep making money. With TV sales and so on. And so I felt, okay, what is what I want to tell, right? So I did First Shift. I did another film this year, Run, what just got signed by UTA, the agency. They will try to sell it for me, with Amanda Plummer, James Russo, a lot of known actors. And it's also an action thriller about the migrant crisis in Europe, where American businesses getting affected by it, and the situation on one day, plays all in one day, similar to First Shift, escalates. So because I felt like bored about all that migrant dramas we have, you know, the mother who wants the kid, you know, like that other people can do that. So I felt like, no, I want to show the violent escalation between migrants and people locals, you know, and even if some people would say, oh, are you crazy? How you can do this? You know, but that's what's happening every day. Like we had 20,000 knife stabbings in Germany last year from migrants, where they're stabbing people, and most survive, but there are hundreds of dead people based on people basically losing their shit, you know, and then the question comes up why we let them into the country. So, and I wanted to show migrants with empathy, you know, and of course it's like 1 out of 100 who's doing maybe something, but still the question is why we let the 100 in, then we have 1 out of the 100. So that question, I think, in the US, is in Europe, is on the table. And because nobody would do a film like this, I did it. And I'm very happy that, like, Marcus Henderson from Get Out, Ulrich Thompson from Fasten, or Bakat Abdi from Captain Phillips, who was nominated for so we have good cast that is soon coming in the first trailer out. And because they all felt, including like the black actors, and so they felt like, no, we should tell that story, because
they're very interested in it.
Yes, you know, so, and they think it's worth it. So I hope it will get a bigger audience, and then, you know, then we go from there. And when I was talking to like my actors, and they all watched, because all that actors never worked with me before. And besides Kristen Renton, I hired her again from First Shift, and they watched Postal. They all laughed. That is the reason that Postal thing came up, that I felt with my partner Gary Otto, where we do that Uwe Boll Rock podcast for years. We felt, why not doing Postal too? So, you know, and then I made a mistake, because you said we should bring the subject up. I made a mistake when I posted it. We should do Postal 2, whatever. And a lot of people got the traction right before the.
I was retweeting it myself. I was excited.
Before the crowdfunding. And then Vince Dizzy from Running with Scissors, they have a good relationship with them for like 20 years now, right? He said that he cannot say no if that happens, right? We thought that is the green light, that we could go for Postal 2. And we felt, if so many people like it so much, why we shouldn't try crowdfunding, where I would match it, right? So I would put my own money in, but you saw it, I saw it. Postal 1 was not a cheap film.
It was not. You put all that money on the screen.
Yes, we cannot do Postal 2 for $1 million or $2 million. We need more money. So it's because otherwise it sucks, and then everybody says, "What the fuck was that?" You know, you cannot. You have to really, not only from the book and from the actors, but you also need to get the look. You know.
So, it's one of those like big things with sequels. It always has to be bigger. Always has to be like visually better. That kind of like, that expectation of it. And then we wrote on the Indiegogo campaign that, what is if we are not getting a lot of money, but let's say we get $1 million. It will be not enough to do. You know, even if I put $1 million for my money in, it will be not. So let's do then a different film. Like something like Kentucky Fried Movie, what I did was German Fried Movie, where you have this kind of airplane movies, where you have like limited locations, you have a lot of different like actors, a little like Saturday Night Live, but way harder as Saturday Night Live, right? And I said, then we would do this, and that
Vince didn't want it. And I completely understand in retrospective where he said, hey, we're not supporting that crowdfunding because if they don't get enough money, they will just shoot a different film. Then people flipped out on Gary Otto, they flipped out on me. And then we made within 24 hours the decision to pull the whole thing down. And of course, I'm kind of sad about it that we pulled it down. On the other hand, it was a bad start. And I think it's good that we pulled it down. But of course, it's still, when you see what campaigns getting financed sometimes, not only films, but also like crazy shit. Like somebody develops like a stomach massage thing and raises 400,000, and you think like, what the fuck? These things are you only have to Google them. And then you feel like when you have so many fans of Postal, why we cannot work all together in trying to get the film done. Yeah. You know, and when then people say, oh, you should offer a Blu-ray for $40. And then I answered individual people and I said, look, it's about making the film, not about scoring a cheap Blu-ray. That's the aftermath, right? So I said, like, if we cannot spend all our money on the perks you get, because the whole point of the crowdfunding is that make a film with the money, right?
Yeah, because eventually, like, you're taking all that money from this pool, and you're just like, all right, that's got to go to shipping out Blu-rays, that's got to go to printing out Blu-rays, and effectively, by the time you've got this big stack, it's down to about here.
Yes, and then you have also, like, let's say you sell 20,000 Blu-rays up front with the crowdfunding. Every distributor hates this. Because they say, look, this 20,000 people are our customers who are now getting a free DVD from you. So, or free Blu-ray, right? So they don't like, the distributor of the film will not make any money later. So, and that it's the thing. So I hoped in a way when we launched it that we reach a bigger group of Postal fans. I'm sure 95% of people who love Postal never saw the campaign in the very end. And the real question is, in the future, like Vince wrote me also, like, how this is not the way to do Postal 2. So I wrote him back about how. You know, it's not like Netflix says, here's money for Postal 2. That doesn't happen. And if you go, if you would have a bigger company saying, we are interested to do Postal 2, it would be limited and censored. Yeah, you know, it would be not going away with this kind of humor we want to do.
Yeah, but like, okay, let's say Lionsgate, if they came up to you and said, hey, we got $2 million, full creative control goes to you, you've got full edit control, all of that, would that be just like an instant, like, snap heartbeat situation?
Yes, no, I would do it, and I would put another 2 million in, right? So and would shoot the film, and then of course with 4 million you can do a lot if you have crew members and actors who take a cut, right? Who say, like, look, I'm coming back for the film, I do it, you give me only minimum fee, but I get a percentage. Yeah, it's like 2%, that is 1%. How I would do it. That is how I would do it then. And because we could bring, like, Osama bin Laden, Larry Thomas, we could bring back, of course, the Jude and his girlfriend, Jackie Tone. So we could bring them back, and and I would love to write stuff, like, to have this time jump. We would do it like 10 years later. They may be married and they live in a trailer park again because it didn't work out. Like stuff like this.
Kind of just repeating the same kind of cycle.
But we would, of course, every scene would be adjusted to right now. So to the world we're living in, whatever. Zelensky is the best fan, the best. Whatever, but you have to bring all that double gangers in, like the doubles in from the politicians, like Putin's double now, know, and stuff like this, and then you go totally under the belt, you know. So, and that was the goal, and I think everybody would love to see a film like this.
I would. And as someone who's a big fan of that first movie, I want to see what you have kind of cooking up in there.
Yeah, and that's the thing. What you said with Lionsgate also, like, I would love it, right? The thing is, like, sometimes I try to get into the shoes of this distribution companies. And what they don't see is they just see the plain numbers. They say, "Oh, Postal flopped," right? As an financially, Postal flopped.
Well, also
You have to
because
see
like
that.
you were pulled out of theaters too, like you,
Yes.
which I think was incredibly unfair. You were also like really early to this. Like it was basically like a big criticism of America post 9/11, and that kind of hurt it in a way where it's like people weren't ready for that. Annoyingly, because I think you did a pretty accurate critique of America at that time. It feels accurate.
Yeah, and Cinemark and Regal pulled it out of all their movie theaters.
Yeah.
And that was the end of any theatrical chance, basically. I think only AMC played it. And but what I wanted to say with the distribution companies is they should have a better research what films where you could do a second part actually have fans.
Oh yeah.
And I think Postal, like in my life, I mean, I did Rampage 1, 2, 3, but otherwise Rampage would be even with Postal. But Postal never had a second part. And I think Postal is the film who has the biggest commercial appeal to do another film from all of my.
Oh yeah. I would say, like, I think if they reran that first one in theaters and had that second one attached to it, that could make a killing. I think it could.
Yeah, that you would start Postal 2, and then you do like a week later, you bring the first one back.
Oh yeah.
Right. So, and when you do like a trailer, you cut scenes from the first one in, and then you see the aging, like, I mean, it's like what looks older now, right? So you have to see like this and then this, and it's the same kind of shit he's in,
Yeah.
So, and then he remembers Uncle Dave, who's behind you, Dave Foley. He's dead, but he remembers him, and then he maybe wants to do a cult. Like he thinks like, look, he's watching on HBO the Keith Raniere story, with all the
the victim
girls paying all that money for this total bullshit with the branding. So he has already like a branding iron and goes. So you need shit like this in the film, and that would be like. Besides, I would love it, but I think the people would love it because it goes this. You have this plain humor in TV, like the Jimmy Kimmels, the Saturday Night, all that stuff. And then comes Postal, and it has to be like book.
Yeah.
When people when the first teaser comes, like, what the fuck, So I think plays very well to the also the younger audience today, in general, the influencers, this kind of TikTokers and so on. I think they would love something like Postal.
Oh yeah, I think in the last, especially I think last 10 years, it's really been like reevaluated and looked at more like, yeah, this is a smartly made, well made, consistently like on its beat, never dropping it comedy, and you really just don't get those nowadays, honestly. I think I said it before, like, horror is succeeding, but comedy is just, it's flatlined. It is dead, I kind of feel.
I just watched, because I thought it's a comedy, on Netflix, I think, with Zac Efron, Nicole Kidman, and that girl, the girl is the assistant of Zac Efron. He's a Marvel star. He's a superstar film guy. And it started kind of entertaining because he played him like he is a total idiot, like a bodybuilding idiot. Like it's this kind of like the Chris Hemsworth, like this. So
kind of meathead, but nothing past that. I get where you're coming from.
And he needs her in a way, and he's a total idiot. And I have to say, within half an hour, it was actually a romantic love story with him and Nicole Kidman. And there was no more jokes. I mean, the jokes were less and less and less and less. And I watched it with my son. We were sitting there like,
it's like, where was the comedy again?
Yeah, exactly. Where's the comedy again, right? And there were like a few mini jokes, but I would say Postal has in 10 minutes more jokes as they had in 100.
Oh yeah.
There was no fun to watch this then because it could make the decision what we're doing here. And most of the comedy now is this kind of approved kind of comedy, romantic kind of bullshit. Even films like Hangover would not get shot anymore, right? And when they
Hangover 1, 2, and 3 were
off the air because Robert Downey Jr. played the blackface, right? So they took. I loved Tropic Thunder. It was a great film, and to to not air this anymore is insane.
Yeah, it's like I can't remember the last time I saw it when I was passing by like a Netflix or a Hulu. I think I have it on Apple TV. Yeah, it's the only place I can think of where it's like I bought that, so I got it. But yeah, you can't find it on Netflix, can't find it on Hulu.
No,
It's
they're
fucking
all like,
insane.
oh, no, we cannot do this. And that's very disappointing about I think the comedy genre suffered the most in the last 7, 8 years.
Yeah, it's like it's become homogenized. It's become very blank. You know what I mean? It's like just average. So I can think of
Yes.
it's like it's not even
Yeah.
trying to do absurd stuff anymore. It's kind of just here's a funny quip and maybe a dick joke, and that's it. It's kind of all you
Yeah.
get now. It's not really
Yeah.
much past that.
But they don't even go so far anymore, not even close to like American Pie or
Yeah.
something, Mad About Mary or something. They were far ahead, super bad. They were
Uh,
good comedy, right? And then even so I think they do Naked Gun new right now, right? With
yeah.
Liam Neeson.
Yeah.
And that's my biggest hope that they break through again
Yeah.
and make it really funny and people will laugh their asses off and then the dam breaks and you can get away with offending humor what gives a shit about everything.
Yeah.
That's my hope. My fear is that the end of comedy. That it's so vogue and so like limited that
Yeah.
we're all sitting there
Just
and
like what's going on here, guys? Come
yeah,
on.
they're pissing on the grave of Leslie Nielsen. I
Yeah.
mean, it's tough to match Naked Gun,
It
you know,
is.
to make that the same kind of funny because the films age well. You still
Yeah.
can watch them and laugh your ass off.
It-
So
it's
that
like
is a tough thing.
it's one of those things where it's like there is so much they could parody now, even with like that concept of Naked Gun. Like those first movies are, parodying a lot of stuff, but they're also unique films that, they have their own footing. They can stand on their own. Because I mean, I'm 28. I don't get a lot of references in Naked Gun. I do get some of them, but there's some where I'm like, that's a bit before my time. Don't necessarily get it, but it's still a funny bit. And that's the important part. As long as it's a funny bit, you can ignore that context because I don't have it. I missed a lot of those shows growing up, but it still works within that concept of like, it's a funny thing outside of making fun of something or referencing something. It's just funny,
That's the thing. That it's also physically comedy, right? It's comedy where it's not all talk. It's
Yeah.
also similar to Postal, with a lot of action, a lot of physical things happening. They are funny and
Yeah.
they translate in always good, because everybody
Exactly.
understands it. You cannot do like a screwball comedy where they only talk, then Naked Gun would be over the hill and dead.
Yeah,
Because
it would be over.
that's 30 years ago, or 35 years ago, the films. And a lot of films in that time category are dead, and you never watch it because there's like mostly when in Europe they're all shooting like art house films and dramas and whatever. And I said, look, how many times in the last 20 years you watched Jaws, and how many times you watched Rainer Werner Fassbender's 40 dramas he shot?
Yeah.
None, right? Or Michel Antonioni's Italian masterpieces, or Federico Fellini's. Like we all know at their time, they were the top directors and they made films, they won the Oscar, whatever, right? But they're almost unwatchable now, not because they're so bad or the actors are so bad, because they don't get you. Because it's just subject matter what drags you in now. It's just like over the past and nobody gives a shit about it anymore. So that's the thing, right? You cannot identify with the problems they had in Italy in the 70s, because we're living in a totally different world. But genre films and they age normally well, right? You will watch in 50 years still Western. You will and that's the same.
Well, there's some things like people always bring up RoboCop, and nobody ever brings up Svetters. As much as I like Svetters, it's a great film, but RoboCop will always kind of last on. It's the best way I can describe it.
But not only because
it's a good movie.
Yeah, but not because it's almost like Starship Troopers too, right? The Verhoeven did some major historical, I think, films, they still stay.
Yeah.
But that's because of the nihilistic director tone what is in it. That is, I think, the perfect example how a normal kind of on paper genre film with B actors,
Yeah.
Turn into an all-time classic because the director put his vision on it.
Yeah.
And the vision was unfortunately very negative about the humans in general, but that made it so funny, right? And
Yeah.
that made it so crazy that you felt like totally connected to it, And some moral-driven bullshit films from 30 years ago, nobody gives a shit about it now anymore. They
Exactly.
didn't survive anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Naja.
I am fascinated though, because I want to circle back to First Shift really quick.
Yeah.
Like you set up for a sequel in that, but I am kind of curious. Have you ever thought about doing like a television show?
Yes, that
Hmm.
was this project,
Okay.
right? I think First Shift can go three ways, right? Nobody watches it, and it's one film. That was it.
It's a good film.
Second is it gains a little traction, and we can maybe do a second or a third part, like both, maybe like doing a trilogy out of it, or we do 6 or 8 episodes, right? So we're like a 60 minutes episodes, and we continue the story, and that is what I tried in the end credits to show that can continue, right? I mean,
Yeah.
she says it. They found the dead mafia guys, right? So there is
Yeah.
an investigation now going on connected to part one. And that is how we wrote it, how we felt it. And we would love to do it, of course. So
Yeah.
that's the thing, But of course, this would mean you need some support from a streamer or a TV channel who would
Yeah.
say, look, we like the film, let's continue. And there is the thing, when you read every day in what financial trouble Warner Brothers is, Paramount is, with
Yeah.
billions in debt, like billions and billions, why then they give the same people 10 million per episode to do a TV show? They
Yeah.
could also just say, look, let's do First Shift, 8 episodes, and we spend only 12 million bucks on all episodes together, right?
Okay.
And
And
we let Overdo he should do his way, right? So, and I bet we would have the same ratings if we are in a cable channel or whatever as the best shows they show there.
yeah.
So that's the thing. That is what I hope for the whole time, that something like this would happen. And for this, it's important that people watch First Shift and vote for it, right? Go on IMDb, on Amazon, vote.
Give it.
Hopefully 7, 8, 9 points for it.
Yeah.
There are these ball haters when you see on IMDb the rating right now,
Oh
where you
yeah.
have 55% voted at 1 point. I mean, sorry, but
Yeah.
First Shift is not a 1 point rating.
Yeah, not at all.
It's just
I think I gave it like 4 stars on Letterboxd. I really liked it.
yeah,
I'm intrigued to see where this world goes, because you've set up these characters and kind of gave them like a good a good point to kind of come off from, and then like you get a
yes.
good landing.
No, and I agree. And I think it would get, of course, when you know you can do 8 episodes, you
Yeah.
can structure the side plots, investigations going on longer.
Oh yeah.
Right? I had to do basically in the first film, I had to do closed cases in a way.
Yeah.
That you don't have, like, if it's ending up that there's never a First Shift 2, then I still wanted a film what stands alone, where the people don't say, but I need to know now how the mafia guy, because all the other episodes, including the thing with the dog and so on, got to an end.
Yeah, you everything kind of wrapped up nicely. I compare it a lot to Postal, because it's one of those ones that I can especially point out where it's like all those little plot threads all wrapped up in a clean way. They all led to the ending, and it's the same thing you did with this one. Everything just structurally just fit right to that ending.
Yeah, and I agree with look, with the brother from her, right? I mean, we don't give it away now, but I wrote a review where a guy gave First Shift 1 out of 5, and he obviously had no clue that it was the brother from her.
Yeah.
That means to me he never watched the film.
Yeah, he probably took a couple too many piss breaks, maybe took a phone call or something, and just stopped paying attention.
Yeah, but then sorry, then you're not a good reviewer, right? That is just bullshit. And because that is what you said, if it's interconnected to each other, because in the very beginning of the movie, this side plot didn't make any sense. The audience could ask why we see that guy with the woman drinking wine or whatever, like you could
Yeah.
ask this. But of course, it is interconnected, and then it comes to the full force in the end. And that is, for me as a filmmaker, a lot of times, and I mean, I did so many films, is sometimes very hurtful when you see there are some reviewers, they pay all their attention when they watch a Terrence Malick film,
Yeah.
as boring it can be, right? So, but then they don't pay any attention when they watch my films.
Yeah.
And you feel like, okay, guys, I mean, then just don't watch my films and shut the
Exactly.
fuck up. You don't have to write anything
Yeah.
when an Uwe Boll film comes out. So that's the thing what is a little disappointing. You just want the respect, that the people respect that it's a lot of work to make a film.
Yeah.
You know.
It's also one of those things, like, people don't, because I've worked a little bit in game development. People don't realize, like, there's so many people, like, on one project. It's the same thing with a film. There's hundreds of people. There's crew. There's lighting. There's makeup. There's so much that it's like, the fact a movie even gets made half the time is impressive. There's a lot of hands on deck.
Yes, yes.
And
And I see that's the thing, it's but I mean, I felt also, and good that we did our podcast today, and I feel I do a lot of podcasts, and I think it's a new dimension now. It's a second chance for support, but also it's not anymore like how it was 20 years ago. If the newspapers trashed you, it was all over, right?
Yeah.
So now you have film fans, you have people that do their podcasts, you have social media, and that helps, because I feel like my film's tracking better now. They're getting a better, basically, standing based on people see them, they see them on Tubi, whatever, and then they also go a little more open-minded in it.
Yeah, it's one of those things. I feel like people are starting to reevaluate things just in general more. It's like there was this kind of like wave of, like, I would say, like, disingenuous criticism over the years, where it's like everything had to be more snark than it had to be substance, and it's like I feel like we're starting to get away from that just in general as people. Like, we're starting to get towards a more, like, if there is snark, the snark has to at least, like, make sense and matter to what's going on, compared to, like, 2008, 2009, where it's just people would say shit randomly just for attention online. I feel, it's
Yeah, that 100% too, right? So then let's wrap it up.
yes. Uwe, thank you for having me. I'd love to have you back again sometime soon. This was a fun
Absolutely.
conversation. Usually
With Run, right? With my next film.
I will
When
be
the
there.
first trailer's out or the film comes out, we definitely do it again.
All right.
And I happily share the links and everything.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks again, folks, for coming to this episode. Check out First Shift on Apple TV, Amazon. There's an Amazon link down below. Everywhere you can pretty much find it. You can find a bunch of Uwe Boll's films, including Rampage, Postal, a bunch of stuff on Tubi and other various streaming platforms. Please check them out. They're really good. I'll say this: Postal, if you haven't watched it, that number one on your list, hit that button immediately. It's a good time. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Uwe.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.